how do we do more? What can we do that's different, right? What can we do that's new? Because, 2 days ago, I would have thought this case is dead and now it's got new life. Well, Jihi starts talking about how the biggest challenge that we had back at headquarters was dealing with terrorists. And I start to chime in the same way. I was like, yeah, terrorists are like, they're the worst thing in the world to try to fight because. So she's having this excellent success and she's winning this excellent reputation. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of like, well, what can I do? What can I do? And one middle ranking case officer, a guy named James in the book.
Yep.
James finds out about us, and James actually has experience working against Falcon. He's the only one in all of Wolf that has experience working against Falcon. And he starts to talk to us about why we're there. And we explain, hey, Falcon House picked us up and we're out here to build new operations against Falcon. And he's like, that's pretty cool. And then he tells us some of his experience working against Falcon. And he's like, the hardest part is the bureaucracy. You got to go through 5 lanes of approval before you fucking talk to a guy. And we tell him that our charter is actually the opposite of that. We don't have to tell anybody what we're doing. And we have a blank check. And then he just gets excited because he is an aggressive officer that wants to go after that country anyways. And he's senior enough that he's like, why don't we just try a couple of things and we won't tell management until after it's successful.
So he can just make that kind of call.
Anybody can make that kind of call, but you have to have wasta, what we call wasta. Wasta is the Arabic word for influence. If you have a few tours under your belt, you don't mind going toe-to-toe with leadership because leadership also most likely has the same amount of tours as you do, or they've worked with you in the past. And James is Falcon House. He's come from Falcon House himself. So the leadership at Wolf knows that he's got connections and he's a pretty shit-hot officer on his own. So when he gives us a little bit of leeway, we're like, let's do it. So we put together a little package. We do some initial research. We send him out to find somebody. And it clicks and it works. We save one of his cases. He brings it back to Wolf leadership and he's like, hey, these guys are onto something. They just made a case that headquarters was going to close. They just made it active again.
Was this the bridge guy?
Correct.
Okay, so can you just give the context on him and where he was situated such that James thought he had already kind of let him dry?
Yeah, so CIA can only collect intelligence based off of priorities that are set by, at the time, the DNI. So the DNI says, I want information about this. And if you have a case, you have to basically say, hey, this case is producing, lines 7, 12, 28, and 200 of what the DNI wants. Bridge was this engineer from a third country, a non-Falcon country. But he was this engineer who was helping the Falcon national government create military technology, steal military technology, essentially, from the United States. So he's kind of the middleman helping them get information from the U.S. The problem is that what he was stealing from the U.S. already knew was being stolen. So according to the lines on the DNI, Bridge had no value. He wasn't giving secrets that we didn't already know about, so they couldn't approve, CIA technically couldn't approve James to keep meeting with Bridge because there's no new information that's coming out of it.
And James hadn't really worked with targeters much in the past,
Correct, right? Correct. So James is sitting here and he meets a guy and he's like, this guy's an engineer against Falcon. I hate fucking Falcon. And Falcon's stealing our shit. How could this not be a good case? And of course, headquarters is like, it's not a good case. So we're not going to pay for it anymore. And you can see that conflict between headquarters and the field again. Jihi and I walk in, more specifically Jihi, and she comes up with the idea. She's like, hey, if he's an engineer in Falcon, he must know other engineers who are actually Falconian, like in the country. So what if we stop thinking about what information Bridge has and we start thinking about who the other people are that he's connected to? Because he must be connected to Air Force generals and Navy colonels and whatever else. Like he must have connections.
So we can get to them.
So Jihi does her targeting thing and she finds 5 or 7 connections that are connected to Bridge directly from his cell phone, people he's calling. She sends that back to headquarters. Headquarters comes back and it's like, holy shit, we really like these guys. Can you target these guys? And Jihi's like, yeah, we can target them, but you need to keep running Bridge because if we lose Bridge, we lose access to this source of information.
So you had access to his cell phone? Because
James was meeting with him.
Was that James like sleight of hand, like unlocking his phone when he wasn't looking, or was that?
That was
microchip in his phone.
Technological tools that I am not at liberty to disclose. But
guys, we're good. There's nothing bad happening here. Just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
So we were able to start targeting new targets that are of interest to CIA that do fit under categories of the DNI's notebook or the DNI's requirements list because of Bridge and because of James, which makes everybody happy. Makes leadership at Wolf happy, makes James happy, makes Falcon House happy, makes me and Jihi happy because now we have a case officer.
Proof of concept.
Proof of concept.
Now, is this when you actually come up with the wait a second, fuck, we could do a cell model type thing?
Yes. So what
How
ends
does
up
that
happening,
happen?
so Jihi and James are having this conversation and James is geeking out because he's just a fun guy and Jihi's a giant dork, so she's also getting excited. So we got this whole nerd fest going on in James's office where we're like, holy shit, we have almost unlimited money, approval from both sets of leadership. You have this case that doesn't have to die right away. This is all good news. So of course, James is like, how do we get more? How do we do more? What can we do that's different, right? What can we do that's new? Because, 2 days ago, I would have thought this case is dead and now it's got new life. Well, Jihi starts talking about how the biggest challenge that we had back at headquarters was dealing with terrorists. And I start to chime in the same way. I was like, yeah, terrorists are like, they're the fucking worst thing in the world to try to fight because they're ignorant and they're broke, but they have this model of communicating with each other where 10 terrorists don't know who 9 other terrorists are. They only know who one person is. And that one person might know 10 people on their side, but the other 10 people don't know each other.
Like the courier for bin Laden.
Exactly. The courier for bin Laden got orders from one person and took his orders to one place. Like that's how it worked. He was super cut off from everything. So even if you were to access the courier and try to get intelligence from the courier, they wouldn't know dick. I get my info from here and I take my info there. That's pretty much it. It just so happens that they found out that courier where he took his info was to bin Laden, to enemy number one. That's how terrorist networks work everywhere. No terrorist knows everything except for one kind of cell leader, and that cell leader is disposable because as soon as that cell leader is killed, they know they're going to be killed, and they already know who's going to replace them. So when that cell leader is killed, a replacement pops up, and we don't know who the replacement is going to be. Only they know who the replacement is going to be. So it's a game of whack-a-mole every time you fight terrorism, which is why we didn't beat ISIS. It's why ISIS still exists. It's why Israel can't beat Hamas, because Hamas is going to continue to exist. It's why Hezbollah is weakened but not gone. It's why Al-Qaeda still exists and has splinter cells all over the world. It's so fucking hard to fight these guys because of the way they communicate and the way they plan and execute their operations. So after kind of verbalizing this back and forth between me, Jihi, and James, Jihi kind of had this light bulb go off and she was like, we're the only ones that know that. We're the only ones fighting the war on terror. We're the only ones that know that this is how terrorists work. China doesn't know this. Russia doesn't know this. North Korea doesn't know this. Turkey doesn't know this. France doesn't know that. Nobody else fucking knows because they're not spending hundreds of billions of dollars fighting the global war on terror. To them, they're just watching us beat our heads against a wall. But we actually can understand the modus operandi of a terrorist cell. And of course, I'm like, that doesn't do us a lot of good. James looks at Jihi and he's like, I think I know what you're saying. And Jihi's like, yeah, what if we start building a terrorist cell right here in Wolf?
So that if you have Falcon headquarters knowing they have a mole, the mole only may know who the courier is and they have no idea who the courier is talking to. So you guys set up your own splinter cell where you guys recruit, lead, and manage case officers underneath you to go in and do missions that only you know the results of and the people they're talking to, and then you just give the amalgamation report back to headquarters.
Bingo. So now, in theory, we have another situation like we did with Bridge, where everybody's happy because our case officers get credit for the cases they're running because the reports that they write get communicated to Wolf leadership. Wolf leadership can basically say, yes, so-and-so contributed 30 reports this month. Wolf leadership gets to take credit for those reports going up to Langley, headquarters. And Langley headquarters is like, Wolf's kicking ass. Everybody's getting that pat on the back all the way up. Meanwhile, in Falcon House is getting the reports that they need. They just don't know where it's coming from, which means the mole can't find who it's coming from. So the mole has to step out of line to reach somewhere else to try to find the information he's looking for, which is baiting him into making the mistake he needs to make for Falcon House to find him.
Hey, before the day where you came up with this idea, obviously you had known for a while because they told you there was a mole and Jihi's a targeter. Had she spent any time like trying to figure out who it was?
She spent a little bit of time wondering, but the thing is, we don't have all the information. We don't even have enough information. We know that somewhere there's a leak, but we don't know what that leak is. So just to give you some context, right? Is it a person who's stealing information from a classified database? Or is it somebody who's not stealing anything because he found a vulnerability or a weakness, a backdoor into the technology, and the information is just there to grab? Or is there like some penetration, some technical element where he has surreptitiously gained access to the system and is using that surreptitious access intentionally? So is this malicious? Is it active? Is it passive? We don't know. And how do you even start to reverse engineer a case that you don't know?
What was the reaction at Falcon headquarters when you took this idea to them and said, can we get permission to set something like this up?
So it was actually Wolf first that we took it to. So our local leadership first. And we were like, hey, we're gonna build a model that's based off of Al-Qaeda, and we're going to use it against Falcon. And Wolf leadership was like, the fuck you are. They're like, we're not going to be the ones that approve this. That's fucking crazy. There's no way you're doing that.
Relax, Osama.
So
you kind of look like him too.
So we got knocked on our heels a little bit there, but we still had the right to take conversations directly to Falcon House. So we sent a separate cable to Falcon House and we were like, hey, we have this idea and we're not getting a lot of leadership support here in Wolf. What are your thoughts there? Falcon House, again, they were less interested, we didn't realize this at the time, they were less interested in the new operations as much as they were interested in us creating something that worked so that we would smoke out the mole. So they came back and they were like, if you need support from headquarters, you'll get support from us formally. So go back and tell your leadership team again that if they need formal direction from headquarters, we'll provide it. But we think this operation would be better handled in the field.
Okay.
So they're kicking the ball back and forth for all intents and purposes. So we go back to Wolf leadership and say, hey, Falcon House would like to see this happen. They're giving you first right of refusal, which is basically a way of saying, do you want to make it your idea or do you want to be told by mom that you have to do it?
Yeah.
And that's when Falcon House, or that's when Wolf caved to us, and Wolf was like, okay, you guys can have 60 days. And James, 60 days in James to show us what this creates.
The case officer. So how does this work then? Is it like a fantasy football draft now where you get to look at case officers around the world and say, oh, she'd be great or he'd be great, and you call them and say, the Philadelphia Eagles would like to select you with the 5th pick in the draft? Like, what's the layout here?
I wish it was that way. No, it was more like backyard kickball, where who's in the neighborhood, who's allowed to come out and play, and then who wants to be on your team. That's basically what it was like. So we had proof of concept with James, and we started to have more success with James. Like I was telling you earlier, between every 1 and 4 years, there's a rotation. Always new officers coming in, always new officers going out. Always new case officers coming in, always new case officers going out. So new case officers were coming in about every 6 to 12 months. So as new case officers came in, we had a chance to basically say, do you want to come play on our kickball team? Here's what we're doing. Here's how it works. And we had James, who was this mid-tier, like shit hot case officer, who was like, hey, we're doing some cool shit. And what we do here, nobody gets to know about, which is just really appealing, really attractive to the right kind of case officer.
Kind of like Ocean's 11. Like, like we got a job here.
We got a job for you. Yeah. The problem is anybody who comes to work for us is essentially going to have to work twice as hard because they still have to meet all their requirements for Wolf. So we're kind of like, we're a second job. And not everybody wants a second job. So we had a lot of people who were like, we're not interested in helping you.
So you still have to meet your quotas.
You have to meet your quotas for Wolf.
Yep.
And then everything you do for us is on spec, if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.